Hi everyone. In today's video, I wanted to introduce to you a really nice app on the calculator that allows you to find the solutions for systems of equations. And it's a very powerful tool. We all know that in college algebra, we are expecting you to show your work to solve systems of equations. But as we know in any math problem, it's sure nice to know what the answer is that you're working towards. Okay, so on the left-hand side, we have our TI-84 Plus graphing calculator. I'm going to change the view here, but I wanted you to see it as a calculator. As I change the view, this is my screen on the calculator. I'm just making it a little bit larger for you to see. The buttons are still the same as what you would see on your calculator. So on the calculator, in the second column, towards the top, it's the fourth button from the top in that second column, there's this button that says apps. And any graphing calculator comes built in it a selection of apps. Just like on a smartphone, there are apps that you can put on it. All the apps on the calculators could be different. So the app that we're going to be using today, you may or may not have on your calculator. If you do not have it on your calculator, please contact your instructor and they'll give you some guidance on how to put this on the calculator. Is it absolutely necessary? No. But it's sure nice to know the answer that you're working towards. So when we click apps, there's this menu. You may have a whole bunch of apps. You may have just a few, okay? And the app that we're looking for is this one here. It's called PolySimult, okay? And you can either push the down key to go down to it, or you could push number 9 because it's the 9th app, at least on this version of the calculator. And I'm going to push enter. In this app, there are several things it can do. The first thing that it can do is a polynomial root finder. It can solve a polynomial for you. Okay, very nice. The second thing down is what we're going to be using today, though, the simultaneous equation solver, or the system of equations solver. Okay, so we're going to go down to number 2 and push enter. And then there's a menu of settings that you have to choose. First, you have to tell it how many equations your system has. Then it says how many unknowns do you have, or in other words, how many variables. It's going to talk about rounding. It's going to talk about the format of the numbers that you're given as the answers. Typically, I don't mess with these things down here. Okay, I just kind of leave them in the default setting. I'm going to run through this example over here on the right with you. So we have this system of equations. I tried to pick a larger one, a 3-variable, 3-equation system. And note that in that third equation, I do have the x missing from that equation. So I was trying to pick somewhat of a complicated one. So if we were going to do this example to the right, I have 3 equations, 3 unknowns. So I'm going to use my arrow to move my cursor over to 3. I'm going to push enter. Notice that now the 3 is highlighted. For unknowns, I also have 3, okay? So we have 3 equations and 3 unknowns. I'm going to switch this view here for a second. Notice that in our screen here on the calculator, at the bottom there are these tabs. These tabs line up with these buttons on the top of your calculator. So once you choose your settings, you're going to want to select next, and that next word is right above the graph button. So you're going to push graph. It's a little bit different than what we've seen before, but that's going to push us on to the next menu. Okay, I'm going to make this larger again. Now this screen looks slightly different dependent on the version of the calculator that you have in your operating system. On my personal calculator, I don't have all these variables like we see here. Okay, this one spells out the equation quite a bit more than my personal calculator does, but it doesn't matter. What you do have to do is input the coefficient on your variables from your system of equations. Notice that the first column is for the x's, the second column is for the y's, the third column is for the z's, and then the last column is for your constants on the other side. So just pay special attention that you're putting them in the correct order. So I'm going to go ahead and type my coefficients in, paying attention to the value and paying attention to the signs, whether we're dealing with positive or negative values. Notice that when I was done with the first equation, it jumped down to the second line. Just follow along with the numbers that I'm inputting. And after each value, I'm pushing enter to kind of lock it in. Be careful to use the subtraction sign and the negative sign as appropriate. On this third equation, notice that the equation off to the side here, there is no x term. So if there is a variable missing, you're talking about a 0. So I'm going to leave that as a 0 there. Paying special attention to details. And once you input those numbers, go back through again and double check. Okay, it's very, very easy to make a mistake. So I'm going across that first equation, 1, 1, 1, and 6. That looks correct. 2, minus 1, minus 1, and then a negative 3. That looks correct. A 0, a 3, a minus 2, and a 0. So that all looks correct. Now I'm going to change my view again, putting that screen back on top of the calculator, because all I need to do next is to find the word solve, which is above the word graph, and it's just going to solve it for me. Okay, so it's telling me here that the solution to this problem is an x-coordinate of 1, y-coordinate of 2, and z-coordinate of 3. Now, if this was a problem off to the side here that appeared on a quiz, appeared on an exam, anything like that, you would have to show work. Okay, this is not an app to take the place of showing work. However, as you're going through the work, if you knew that the answer was going to be 1, 2, 3, if you got to a point that you had an x value of 5, you know that you made a mistake somewhere. It's much easier to catch a mistake rather than getting to the end of the problem, trying to plug it back in and realize that it's not going to work. So use this as a self-check. In a real world situation, this is a solver that you can use. So just something to keep in mind. Hopefully that calculator tip will help you out with systems of equations.